Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Gauranga, the Golden Incarnation of Divine Love by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. We are reading from Navadvipa and Youth Pastimes, section 2 at the moment. So let us begin. Then Pundarik sat down on his beautiful bed, which was made of wood covered with intricate brass and reddish stone inlaid work, with 3 tiers of ornamental hangings. He was seated on a soft mattress covered with expensive sheets, with silk pillows under his back. On either side of him, many small and large water pots sat within his reach. A shiny brass plate sat with beetle pan neatly prepared on it. There were 2 large mirrors on either side of him, in which he was continuously glancing and smiling with lips reddened by chewing pan. He wore a sandalwood paste tilak mark on his forehead, and his face was decorated with dots made with a mixture of sandalwood and perfume. His hair was well groomed and shining with delicately perfumed hair oil. 2 persons stood behind him, fanning him with large peacock feathers, because he followed the life of pure devotional service. He looked charming like the Cupid himself. Those who did not know him considered him a prince. Everything gave the impression that he was a man fond of an easy and comfortable life of pleasure. As Gadadhar Pandit saw this materialistic things, he became suspicious. He was very renounced soul from his very early age. So naturally some doubts regarding Pundarik entered his heart. He thought, what sort of a Vaishnav he is, surrounded by such finery and lavish living. Hearing about his devotional mood, I developed a great respect for this person, but now I am seeing this, I am having doubts and getting suspicious. Mukund could understand the tension in Gadadhar's mind. He thought, let me reveal the real nature of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. By the mercy of Krishna, Gadadhar will be allowed to see everything. Nothing will be left unknown. So in a very sweet voice, Mukund began to sing a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. He began to chant a song about Putana, how Putana expressed a little bit of motherly affection. Too bad, I have to kill you. I would like to be your mother, but what to do? Krishna, Kamsa asked me to kill you. So she put poison on her breast, and she was going to kill Krishna by giving her poisoned milk to Krishna. But because she had expressed some motherly affection, therefore she was elevated to Vaikuntha in the position as mother of Krishna. He chanted the verse, alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? He granted the position of a mother to the she-demon Putana. Krishna, you are so merciful. You have given Putana, the witch, a position as your mother. This is because she felt some affection for you. Therefore, for devotee who really tries to serve Krishna with affection, how merciful will he be? As soon as Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard the glories of devotional service, he began to cry. Tears of ecstatic love filled his eyes, rolling down to the ground like streams of the Ganges. Simultaneously, all the symptoms of ecstasy erupted in his body, all at one time. Like an explosion, he wept, trembled, rolled, articulated, roared, fell unconscious in a state of ecstasy, became conscious again, spoke more on the glories of devotional service, then again he fell on the ground. He kicked everything that was around him. He was so anxious, hearing the glories of devotional service. He knocked down all the silver and golden pots, all the different pillows and curtains. Everything was getting ruined. He cried out, I have been deprived of the Lord's association in his most merciful incarnation. Then he rolled down from the high seat and crashed down on the ground. Everyone was afraid that he would break his bones. He trembled so violently that 3 people were trying to hold him down, but they couldn't. He kicked everything in sight, and his disciples stood there helplessly, unable to control him. Thus the storm of ecstatic love was exploding in him and continued until finally it stopped, and he fell into an unconscious state of bliss. He was lying down without breathing, stunned, totally submerged in the ocean of spiritual ecstasy, and all this from one verse of the Bhagavatam. Amazed at what he had witnessed, Gadadhar began to worry. What inauspicious thing overcame me to think in such an offensive manner? He embraced Mukunda and said, "You acted like a true friend. You showed me a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Lord. It will be difficult to find another pure Vaishnav like Pundarik anywhere in the entire creation. One can be purified simply by observing his devotional attitude." When I saw luxurious paraphernalia, I was convinced that he was just addicted to the pleasures of material life, but you read my mind. As a magnanimous soul, you revealed to me the unlimited extent of Pundarik Vidyanidhi's love for God. But I have been so offensive. The extent of my offense can only be eradicated by your mercy. Be merciful to me, purify my heart. All the devotees have taken to the process of surrender, and I have to take the shelter of a guide under whose instructions I have to act. I don't have such an instructor, so I have decided to take shelter of Pundarik Vidyanidhi and follow devotional service under his guidance. I know that I can counteract all my offenses to him by becoming his disciple. In this way, Gadadhar Pandit revealed to Mukund his desire to become the disciple of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was in a state of ecstatic coma for 6 hours. Gradually he returned to his normal state and sat down quietly. It was impossible for Gadadhar to control the tears of joy he felt. Tears were continuously rolling from his face, wetting his entire body. Holding his heart, Gadadhar was unable to speak. Overwhelmed by Pundarik Vidyanidhi's ecstatic devotion, Mukund told Pundarik Vidyanidhi, "He had some doubts about you first when he saw everything, but now he wants to accept initiation from you. He is in the renounced order, a renounced devotee. Although he is young, he is mature in his spiritual realization and comes from a good family. He is always attached to Krishna. Please accept him. He is a qualified person to be your disciple, and you are qualified to guide him. Tell him when he can get the initiation mantra, the Diksha mantra." Pundarik Vidyanidhi accepted and said, "This person is like a precious gem. It would take many lifetimes to find a disciple such as him. The coming 12th day of the waxing moon is auspicious. Come here and your plan will be successful." Mukund came down and went to meet Gaurachandra. The Lord was happy to hear the news of Pundarik's arrival. During the night, without being seen by anyone, Pundarik left all his associates and came to the place of Lord Gaurachandra. As soon as he saw the Lord, he fell down like a rod, offering his obeisances to the Lord. He was overwhelmed with an ecstatic trance. He lay on the ground, experiencing the waves of joy. He began to weep and said, "O my dear Krishna, you are my Lord and Father. I am great offender. Please punish this wretch. O Lord, you have liberated everyone in the world. Only I have been deprived of such fortune." Hearing his lamentation, all the assembled Vaishnavas began to cry, knowing him to be a great devotee. Lord Chaitanya got up and embraced Pundarik Vidyanidhi. He said, "O my father Pundarik, finally I am able to see you today." All the devotees became overjoyed to have the association of such an elevated devotee as Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Their eyes filled with tears. So wonderful was the scene that nobody can describe it. Lord Gaurachandra held Pundarik Vidyanidhi in a loving embrace, wetting him with tears. Understanding how dear Pundarik was to the Lord, the devotees felt affection, respect, and a sense of closeness with him. The Lord continued to hold Pundarik very close to him, exactly like he was merged with him. They were like statues. He held Vidyanidhi in his closed embrace and then came out of his trance and began to chant the name of Hari and said, "Today Lord Krishna is merciful to me. He has fulfilled all my desires. I have met a person of my heart's desire." They all began to chant together, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then Lord Chaitanya said to his devotees, This is Pundarik Vidyanidhi. The Lord has created him to distribute love of Godhead. All the devotees began to chant, Hari Hari, today is a special day. A wonderful thing has happened. I woke up from my sleep and with my own eyes I have perceived the ocean of love of Godhead. I have directly seen personal love of Godhead in the form of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik was ecstatic. He didn't notice anyone. But then he suddenly became aware of the external surroundings and he began to pay his obeisances to the Lord. Then he offered obeisances to Advaita Acharya and all the other Vaishnavas. All the devotees were floating in the waves of ecstasy. Pundarik Vidyanidhi himself is an ocean of love of God. Only an extremely pious and fortunate person is able to describe this marvelous scene. Gadadhar Pandit took Lord Chaitanya's permission to accept initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Gadadhar said, I could not understand the external behavior of this great personality, but now I want to become his disciple. Lord Chaitanya said, yes, perform it quickly. So he arranged a yagya and Pundarik Vidyanidhi gave the Isht mantra to Gadadhar Pandit. So Vrishbhanu of Krishna Leela became the guru of Gadadhar of Chaitanya Leela. Actually, Lord Chaitanya had predicted this pastime to Gadadhar previously. Once Gadadhar Pandit came to Lord Chaitanya and said, ever since I gave my mantra to some devotee who was not qualified, my mind has been very disturbed. So I want to get the mantra again. Please give me the mantra. Lord Chaitanya said, well, your mantra guru is Pundarik. So are you sure you have not committed some offense? While the mantra guru is present, you should only get the mantra from him, not from me. Otherwise, my spiritual life will be affected and also yours. So I should not give it to you. Gadadhar said, if you give it to me, what is the problem? Lord Chaitanya said, well, in another 10 days, he will be here as Pundarik. He wants to see me and I think you are also like a magnet and you are attracting him. So he's coming and you can get the mantra from him. Because Lord Chaitanya is Antaryami, the super soul, he knows everything, past, present and future. He knows all things. So he knew that Pundarik was coming. So Pundarik came and on Odana Shashti, that is the first day of winter, he gave initiation to Gadadhar Prabhu because he told his Isht mantra to someone who was not qualified. That means we should also be careful not to give our mantras away to people who are not qualified. Sarang Thakur and Murari Chaitanya. Sarang Thakur was a very powerful devotee, but he had no disciples. Lord Chaitanya had repeatedly told him, you should take a disciple, at least one. Lord Chaitanya wanted all his followers to be guru, at least those who are strict and strong. He told Sarang Thakur, you please take a disciple. So Sarang Thakur felt very embarrassed. He thought, okay, whatever happens, the first person I meet tomorrow, I will make him my disciple. Usually the disciple chooses who is his guru is. But he had to carry out the order of Lord Chaitanya, so he thought, the first person I see, I will initiate him. This is highly unusual, but he was determined to follow the order of Lord Chaitanya. Just as he did every day, he went early in the morning to the Ganges to take his morning bath. It was dark and he bumped into somebody. He thought, oh, here is the very first person I am seeing, so I will initiate them. So he pulled the person over and he gave the mantra in the ear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He didn't know, but actually the person was dead, but his mantra was so powerful, he brought the dead body back to life. And he was given the name Chaitanya Murari. Chaitanya Murari bowed down to his guru and said, thank you, you brought me back to life. Later his parents heard that he was alive, so they came down and saw him and said, please come back home. He said, well, you gave me life, but then I died, he gave me life again. So now he is my father, so I will have to follow him. Sorry, I can't go back. That was a big shock for his parents, but they accepted it. Of course, if someone becomes a pure devotee, If they go back to Godhead, their forefathers 7 generations before and after all get liberations. In any case, Murari Chaitanya Das was a special devotee. Because he was already dead, he had no fear of death, he was fearless. He once walked up to a tiger and slapped it and said, "Chant Hare Krishna." And then, just like a pussycat, the tiger chanted Hare Krishna. He would sometimes ride into the village on a tiger. People were amazed. Other times he would take a python and wrap it around him. He was completely fearless. Although his guru had only one disciple, he had thousands of disciples. Sometimes he wanted to chant japa. He would go to the Ganges and go underwater for a few days chanting. He was a great yogi, a great mystic. The Lord protects his devotees. Navadvipa was one of the largest cities in the kingdom, and at certain times there was a normal changing of the guard that happened when the soldiers changed their duties. It is mentioned that when Lord Chaitanya started his Sankirtan movement, there were many envious Brahmins who were against Vaishnavism. Some of the envious Brahmanas had seen that warships had arrived with soldiers, and they came over to Srivas Thakur and said, "Srivas, it is all because of you. You are crazy here chanting Hare Krishna. The king has sent an army to arrest all the Hindus. You are going to create big problems for us." Srivas got worried. He locked himself in his puja room and started to worship Nrsimhadev. O Nrsimhadev, Ugram Veeram Mahavishnum, Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha. He was offering all kinds of Nrsimha prayers. "Please protect the Hindus because of what I have done. I am creating so much difficulty for everyone." Actually, because Srivas was such a sincere soul, he thought that whatever anyone said to him must be the truth. Sometimes someone would just speculate something and tell him that it was true. Just to be nasty, it never crossed his mind that people could do such things. He was a very simple soul, so he believed this Brahman. Actually, the Brahmins, they didn't know. They were just speculating. In fact, nothing was being planned by the king to harass the Hindus. So Lord Chaitanya came knocking on the door calling, "Srivas, Srivas, the Lord for whom you are praying, the Lord for whom you are offering worship to, that Lord is here. He is here. Open the door." Upon opening the door, Srivas saw the Lord with 4 hands holding conch, lotus, club and disc in the form of Vishnu. Srivas was amazed and paid his obeisances. Lord Chaitanya said, "There is nothing to worry about. I told you nobody can stop the Sankirtan movement. There is nothing to worry about. Why are you so afraid?" Like this, Lord Chaitanya encouraged Srivas that nothing would happen to the Sankirtan movement. Srivas is Narad Muni, who came down to participate in Lord Gauranga's pastimes. So if we are fortunate, we can also participate in Lord Gauranga's pastimes. He had so many devotees who were doing kirtan in Navadvipa. So this Navadvipa Dham is also known as non-different from Vrindavan, and it also exists in its spiritual form in the spiritual world as Shvetadvip in Golok Vrindavan. There are 4 sections: Vraj, Mathura, Dwarka and Shweta. So this kind of Lord Gauranga is also there. This land of Lord Gauranga is also there in the spiritual world, and most of the devotees who are there in Gaura Leela are simultaneously there in Krishna Leela as well. Vasudev Datta wants to take the sins of the world. Vasudev Datta was such a compassionate devotee that he wanted to take the karma of everyone in the world. He said to Lord Chaitanya, "Just like some great souls take the karma of their followers, the sins of the followers, let me take the sins of everyone, all the conditioned souls. Why should I alone have love for Godhead? Let everyone let me get their sins and let them have love for Godhead. Let them experience the ecstasy of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare." Then Lord Chaitanya said, "How can Krishna let his devotee suffer for everyone else? Just by your desiring they are liberated. Everyone is liberated. I won't let you suffer on their behalf." Miraculous mangoes feed the Sankirtan party. On one occasion, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan party was hungry, but there was no food. So the Lord said, "Give me one mango seed," and he planted that seed, and it grew into a mango tree right in front of their eyes. It sprouted flowers, then fruits, and everyone had mangoes. The mangoes were very big with no seeds and a very thin skin, so the devotees could enjoy the wonderful mangoes. After one mango, the devotees were completely satisfied and could do kirtan for the rest of the day. That place is still there and is called Am Ghat. Keshav Kashmiri surrenders to the Lord. Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmaram verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 7th chapter, verse 10, on many different occasions and in great detail. Thus we can understand that this is very important verse. Actually, you can take the verses in Bhagavatam and explain them word by word and get so many different purports for each verse. Lord Chaitanya gave 64 meanings of the Atmaram verse, but actually, practically speaking, you can give hundreds of thousands of unlimited meaning if you take each of the synonyms, and those synonyms will also have synonyms, so you can further break it down. One of the basic points of this verse is that even if someone is completely materially and spiritually satisfied, still he is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Lord and engages in his pure unalloyed devotional service. This is basically the proof that devotional service is the summum bonum of life. This also proves the transcendental position of the Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya explained this Atmaram Shlok in Jagannath Puri to Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. That's what convinced Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya that Lord Chaitanya was not a conditioned soul, rather he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody could have such an expansive and deep understanding of the verse. A similar situation happened with all-conquering Pandit Keshav Kashmiri. He was touring all over India, and wherever he went, he got people to sign that he defeated them. Therefore, he was Pandit as a great scholar. He was becoming more and more prominent and famous. His secret of success was that he would worship Mother Saraswati. In this way, he would get so much knowledge and defeat others. Keshav Kashmiri had set his eyes on Navadvipa. He wanted to go and defeat all the Pandits in Navadvipa so that he would be the most prominent Pandit in the entire country of India. So in preparation, Keshav Kashmiri offered his worship to Mother Saraswati as usual. The Pandits at Navadvipa were afraid of him because he was practically undefeatable. So they came up with a plan of action. They actually asked Nimai Pandit to meet him. They thought Nimai Pandit is so young and such a strict Pandit that if he defeats him, our glory will be so much. And secondly, even if he does lose, then he could possibly get another chance by saying, well, he is just a boy. This was kind of a political move on their part to ask Nimai Pandit to meet Keshav Kashmiri. They didn't know his real transcendental position. So Nimai Pandit, Lord Chaitanya went to the Ganges to bathe, and it just so happened that by the will of Providence, he met with Keshav Kashmiri there outside the city. Keshav Kashmiri could understand that here was the person he was supposed to meet. They started to discuss, and Lord Chaitanya took the humble position and said, I would like to hear your poetry. I'm just a humble student of grammar. If I can learn the poetic art from you, then it will be very nice. Then Keshav Kashmiri immediately composed 100 verses glorifying Mother Ganges, composing lines of Sanskrit poetry, one after another. All of them seemed to be completely perfect. Then Lord Chaitanya picked up one verse from the middle of them all and asked Keshav Kashmiri to describe its good and bad qualities. Even though he had composed 100 verses, he had not put them down to memory himself. Lord Chaitanya had immediately committed all the verses to memory. The Lord picked out one, quoted it, and asked, what are the good and bad qualities of that verse? Immediately, Keshav Kashmiri became proud and puffed up. Good and bad qualities in my composition. Then Lord Chaitanya proceeded to show various errors in the composition, double negatives, misuse of syllables, and certain grammatical and metaphorical errors. Then after that, he showed the good qualities, how many similes, how many metaphors, and different type of poetic embellishments. Keshav Kashmiri said there were no faults in his composition, but immediately Lord Chaitanya picked out the fault. Technically, Keshav Kashmiri was knocked out of the Pandit arena defeated by Lord Chaitanya. Then Keshav Kashmiri went back to where he was staying. He was trying to think why he said there was no fault in his composition. Why did Saraswati Devi let him down like that? So he prayed to Saraswati Devi to please reveal how he lost to Nimai Pandit. What offense had he made? That night in a dream, Saraswati Devi appeared to him and told him that the person you think is Nimai Pandit, just surrender to him. He is actually my husband. He is my master. He is my eternal master, Krishna. So next day, Keshav Kashmiri surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, and then Lord Chaitanya revealed his transcendental form to Keshav Kashmiri, who then became absorbed in pure devotional service. Yamaraj shocked at Jagai Madhai's deliverance. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there is the pastime of Jagai Madhai being delivered. Jagai Madhai were like the top criminals in the universe. They were born Brahmins in a Brahminical family, and they knew the scriptures. So they personally researched the scriptures to see what are all the worst sins a person can do. They specifically and consciously tried to do all the sins. If to beat up a helpless person was more sinful, then they would go and find a helpless person and beat him. If having sex with the Guru's wife or the Brahman's wife was worse, then they would go and do that. They did specifically like a checklist. Whatever were the most worst sins they could do, they were trying to do all of them. So they were the most fallen Brahmins. This was ridiculing Yamaraj and creating a whole lot of karma, and apparently Yamaraj had special architects in the hellish planets that were making a custom-made hell for them, where they could undergo severe punishment because they were doing super sinful activities. Then suddenly Jagai and Madhai were delivered by Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, and all their sins were forgiven. So everybody was amazed. Yamaraj's assistants had written down all their bad activities, and it took something like 27 different warehouses to store the details of all the karma they had done. It was unbelievable what they were doing. When he heard about this, Yamaraj fainted, so his assistants were fanning him and trying to revive him, but he was not coming back to consciousness. Then Lord Shiva happened to come along. They told Lord Shiva what happened to Yamaraj. They told him that Jagai and Madhai were delivered. When they told Yamaraj, he fainted. It was such a shock. Lord Shiva told them, Yamaraj is not in a shock, he is in ecstasy. He was so overwhelmed with love of Krishna, overwhelmed at how Lord Chaitanya is so merciful, that such sinful persons started to chant the holy name and become devotees and get free from all their sins, that he became ecstatic. He is in trance. That's why your efforts to revive him are not working. You must chant Hare Krishna in his ears. So they started to chant Hare Krishna. Then in Yamalok, all these employees, Yamaduts and accountants, were having a big kirtan to revive Yamaraj. Finally, he came back to consciousness and looked around at everybody having a big kirtan celebrating how Lord Chaitanya is delivering the fallen souls. By Lord Chaitanya's mercy, there is much less work now for Yamaduts. Gadadhar Pandit's preaching. Later, Lord Chaitanya had sent all the devotees off to preach. Gadadhar Pandit had gone to a village close to Katwa, and everybody there attended the program, and they said, we all want initiation, we want to follow you, we are surrendered to you. So Lord Chaitanya thought and said, Gadadhar, since they are all surrendering, you should stay here and guide them. Gadadhar said, but I can't leave you. No, you have to stay here and guide them, said Lord Chaitanya. Gadadhar said, I don't have any deities. Lord Chaitanya carried a deity of Krishna around his neck. He said, I have this deity which is dearest to me. I will give this to you. Then Gadadhar said, I don't have any book. How will I teach? Lord Chaitanya gave him a manuscript of the Bhagavad-Gita, which was signed by him. The Bhaktivedanta Charity Trust did some repairs of the temple, and some deities and some same manuscripts are still there. The whole village is still following Vaishnav Dharma. They take it in turns to cook the noonday meal for the deity, and the deity comes in a procession to the house, and they have a triple altar, Lord Chaitanya, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and the deity of Gadadhar. They put the deity there, and the husband will put the food cooked by his wife, and they will offer prasadam to the deity, and the deity will eat. To this day, after 500 years, they still follow this system. So now we have come to the end of the section 2 of the book, Navadvipa and Youth Pastimes. And next time we'll start reading the last section, which is section 3, Jagannath Puri and later pastimes. This is the last section of the book. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining.